Welcome to Duck Season Somewhere podcast. This episode is brought to you by the following sponsors. GetDucks.com, your proven source for the very best waterfowl hunting adventures. Argentina, Mexico, 6 whole continents worth. For 2 decades, we've delivered real duck hunts for real duck hunters. And USHuntList.com, because the next great hunt is closer than you think. Search our database of proven U.S. and Canadian outfits. Contact them directly with confidence. Trust is earned. By the numbers, 121 waterfowl subspecies bagged on 6 continents, 20 countries, 36 U.S. states, and growing. I spend upwards of 225 days per year chasing ducks, geese, and swans worldwide. And I don't choose shotguns for the brand name or the cool factor. Y'all know me way better than that. I've shot Benelli for over 2 decades. I continue shooting Benelli shotguns for their simplicity, utter reliability, and superior performance. Whether hunting near home or halfway across the world, that is the stuff that matters. Sit means sit and stay until it doesn't. No matter how well or how often trained, retrievers want those ducks as badly as we do, maybe even more. Chardog might be titled, but she's still just a dog. I'm over 50 years old and I still do dumb stuff, trust me. Retrievers are family. I wouldn't endanger my children near heavy traffic, and I'm not going to risk my dog jumping in front of blazing guns either. Gundog Outdoors' patented quick-release safety system is fully adjustable, tethers to any blind or stand, has titanium stakes for frozen ground, and a quick-release marine-grade shackle to quickly release Fido when the smoke clears. Visit GundogOutdoors.com. Connect with them on Instagram at Gundog Outdoors to see their growing line of Gundog safety and performance products. Enter hashtag GetDucks to receive 15% discount off of your first order. Mojo Outdoors, most recognized name brand decoy, #1 maker of motion and spinning wing decoys in the world. More than just the best spinning wing decoys on the market, their ever-growing product line includes all kinds of cool stuff. Magnetic pick sticks, scoot and shoot turkey decoys, much, much more. And don't forget my personal favorite. Yes, sir, they also make the one, the only world-famous Spoonzilla. When I pranked old Terry Dimon in Mexico with a smiling mallard, nobody ever dreamed it'd become the most talked-about decoy of the century. I've used their decoys worldwide, everywhere I've ever duck hunted, from Azerbaijan to Argentina. I absolutely never leave home without one. Mojo Outdoors, forever changing the way you hunt. Boss Shot Shell's copper-plated bismuth tin alloy is the good old days again. Steel shots come a long way in the past 30 years, but will never, ever perform like good old-fashioned lead. Say goodbye to all that gimmicky, high recoil, compensation, science, hype, and hello to superior performance. Know your pattern, take ethical shots, make clean kills. That is the boss way. The good old days are now. It really is duck season somewhere for 365 days per year. Duck Season Somewhere takes me year-round to worldwide destinations where I visit with the most interesting people. I'm your host, Ramsey Russell. Join me here to listen to those conversations. Folks, welcome to a really special episode of Duck Season Somewhere. I'm down in Avoyelles Parish, Louisiana with today's guest. And I want y'all to keep in mind it was different times. It was different times and a different place than what we know today. The mindsets were different. The attitudes were different. The resource was different. The migration was different. But folks, hang on like we're running through a swamp at 100 miles an hour. You want to hear this podcast, okay? Today's guest is Mr. Johnny Borrel. How are you, Johnny?
I'm doing good. I'm 73 years old.
73 years old. Born and raised here in Avoyelles Parish?
Born and raised. Yep.
Now, word on the street is you've killed a duck a time or two in your life. Is that true?
That's true.
Good duck hunter. How many ducks?
If I take a round guess, I'll figure I killed anywhere from 45 to 55,000.
That's a couple.
Yeah.
That's a couple. Do you remember your first duck?
Yep.
How old were you, and how'd that come about?
I was about, I'd say roughly I was about 6 years old, and we jumped a mallard in a canal, and he went in a little further down, and my cousin made the round, and I stayed by an oak tree. And when the duck jumped up, he flew down the canal towards me, and I shot him with a Benjamin pump, 13 pumps, and 2 steel BBs, and I killed him on the fly.
Wow. What'd you do with that duck? Y'all take him home and eat him? Your mama
Oh,
cook him?
yes. My grandmother cooked him for us.
How did you learn to duck hunt?
Really, I think it came natural because I can remember calling with my hand. I didn't have a duck call. I just called with my hands at that time.
Where'd you learn to do that? Did your daddy or granddaddy or? Just your neighbors? Everybody down here did it.
Yeah, just about everybody duck hunted. You know, my daddy and them wasn't that good of a duck hunters, but they were more like dove and squirrel and deer and we duck hunt. You know, but at that time, like I said, they didn't have the bean fields cleared to have the open area where the ducks couldn't hide like they used to.
Right.
It was solid timber from Morgan City all the way up to Minnesota along the Mississippi Valley.
Mm-hmm.
And when they started the bean fields, that's what the ducks didn't have the places to hide anymore. Mm-hmm. And that's when we started really butchering.
So this would have been back in the 50s. You killed that first mallard duck with a Benjamin pellet rifle.
Right.
Back
about
in the 50s.
About 54, 55, somewhere around there.
And you duck hunted up through high school and stuff like that.
Right.
What did now did y'all stick to the whatever the season length was, or was down this part of the world, was it just how did that work?
We started hunting in September and we quit hunting when the mallards would leave.
Right.
And then during the summer, if we found a wood duck roost, we'd go shoot it.
Yeah.
So,
wow.
You know, I mean, we hunted. I mean, down here, I can remember my grandmother. Well, we lived with my grandmother, me, my daddy, my uncle, my mama, and 3 brothers. And everything we killed, we ate.
Mm-hmm.
That was robins, cedar birds, blackbirds, grosbecks, beckcross, squirrels, rabbits, deer, ducks, you name it, we ate it.
It went in the pot.
It went in the pot.
That's pretty amazing stuff.
And then all my kin people ate the same thing.
Same thing. Everybody, the whole community.
I mean, the whole parish.
Were you killing everything you could year round to eat? Were you doing it? I mean, was it a function of economy? Was it a function of just,
well,
we're simple people and that's how we grew up, or was it a function of just the local economy?
Well, really,
or both?
It was both. I mean, back then, back then, my daddy in 1955 was making 75 cents an hour, raising 4 kids.
Yeah.
He was a disabled veteran, but even though, and he was a painter, and he'd work really from about April to August. Then the winter months, I can remember him sitting at the house. Well, he stayed in the woods mostly.
Right.
Him and my uncle.
That's different times, isn't it?
Yeah.
How did you get into market hunting?
Well,
how'd you go from duck hunt with a pellet rifle, feeding your family, to all of a sudden, and when did you get into market hunting?
I was in high school. I met a buddy of mine, Larry Gunyal, and his daddy was a market hunter. And I became friends with him, and we started hunting, and that's how I learned I'd sell my ducks at the barber shop. The barber would tell me I need 2 or 3 ducks here, or 5 or 6 ducks here. And that was to buy shells, my hip boots. I even bought a gun.
Mm-hmm.
And
what kind of gun was it?
I bought a Winchester 1200 pump.
I'll pay.
And I paid $100 for it. And a case of shells at that time, 20 boxes, was $60.
Wow.
And that was 20 ducks, 20 pairs. And I had my case of shells for the year.
So your friend's daddy, y'all were best friends. Your friend's
Right.
daddy was kind of, he was servicing the local market
Right.
with ducks.
Right.
And you realized, hey, I can make some money too.
Right. And that's what I did. You know, I made
Go to the local
my spending
barbershop,
money.
go to the local community.
Right.
What did they have a special species they wanted, or did they just say we want ducks?
Well, a pair of mallards, mostly people wanted mallards back then. So a pair of mallards was $3. A pair of wood ducks was $2.50. A pair of teals was 75 cents a piece. That's $1.25 back then.
Wow.
And really, that was big money.
Heck
you
yeah,
know,
it
I
was.
mean, a pair of squirrels was $2. I sold squirrels even. You know, in Avoyelles Parish, they ate everything.
Yeah.
You know,
Backcrow, robins, cedar waxwings, all that stuff.
A dozen robins was 75 cents. Now, a buddy of mine, Mr. Louis Tassin, had an order to sell 60 dozens at 75 cents a piece, a dozen.
And that was good money.
An order. That's
What would some of the bigger orders look like?
I can remember he had a shed that he built to pick his ducks, and he had nails all the way around. He had 2 rows. I think he had something like 120 ducks he was picking to sell in one lick.
Wow.
And that was most probably going to Baton Rouge.
Unbelievable. So was everybody in the community doing that, or was it just a few of y'all?
It was just down Spring Bar Road. They had quite a few market hunters there that depended on fishing, hunting, and trapping, and market hunting. And then Bartleville had a few hunters, and Morrowville had a few market hunters. They had the Rochalles and let me think. Mr. Geen, the Rico boys would sell ducks too. And further down the road in Bartleville, there was the Fobs, and I can't think of the other one.
But still, there was a lot of people doing it.
Yes,
back in them
quite
communities.
a few. And in Hesmer, they had Lake Pearl. They had a lot of market hunters that stayed in Lake Pearl. People didn't realize.
I bet a lot of people listening are wondering, how did you market hunt? Like was it just regular duck hunting? You shot a bunch, or I mean,
Market hunt, they called, if they got them to light, they'd let them bunch up. And most of them shot Winchester pump Model 12s. You could put 7 shells in the gun.
huh?
So you had 7 shots instead of 5,
Wow,
if you remember that.
I did not know that.
Oh, yeah. I know that the market, Mr. Gunyar and Tassan, that's what they used.
And you'd go out and just put out decoys. And we're not talking about bait,
Well,
or what we talking about bait? All right.
They'd use live decoys sometimes.
Oh, did you ever use live decoys?
No, never had the chance. Well, never had the chance. I was too young for that. I was a young boy when I met them. But they used live decoys.
They raised them.
They raised them.
That was their pet.
Oh, yes. I guarantee you that the secret was they'd put one drake in the back of the blind, one drake on the other side of the blind where the hen couldn't see. And the drake would sit there and then the hen would start calling.
Trying to get him to come in.
Right.
And she'd call all them other ducks in.
Right.
Wow. How many? Just one hen, or was it a couple of them?
Just one hen.
That's all they needed.
That's all they needed.
What kind of habitat were they hunting mostly?
Mostly buttonwood. Back then, they had openings in these sloughs, buttonwillows. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they cleaned it out. They had a pocket. They put a very nice blind because a lot of them guided people from Texas that would come down to hunt over here with Mr. Gunya and Mr. Tossan.
Put me on a timeline now. When are we? We're not talking about early 1900s. We're talking in the 50s, 60s.
Yeah, 50s, 60s. That's when I met them.
Okay.
You understand?
Yes, sir.
Now like I said, in 1949, Mr. Gunya bought a 1949 Jeep, Willis Jeep, 4-wheel drive. Paid $1,750.50. His last duck was a gray duck for 50 cents.
Paid for that truck.
Paid for that Jeep.
How bad were the game wardens back then?
Well, it was sort of like this. You sort of had to. Some of them were bad until about the late 50s. Then they got some pretty good game wardens in that sympathized with them. You understand? They'd let them kill, but they wanted that share too now.
Like how so?
Well, that would go to Baton Rouge most of the time.
Uh-huh.
You understand?
Were these state game wardens?
State.
Yeah.
And then if the feds came in, the state knew about it, so they'd tell the market hunters to slow down that day. Or
take a day off.
Right.
The man's in town. Take a day off.
That's exactly right.
Did you ever hunt with any of them good old boy?
Oh, yes.
Tell me some stories about that.
Well, the first time that I finally got in with them, that's when my uncle was taking care of a bean field. And the night before, the game warden's brother-in-law took the state representative of Avoyelles Parish duck hunting, him and his buddy, and the other buddy that was with they'd hunt together. There was 3 of them. The third one got pissed off, so when he got the game warden to go catch the other 2 and the state representative, but they got away because they didn't bring the ducks out with them.
Mm-hmm.
And the next day, that's when we were all supposed to go again, but they couldn't go, so that's when I got in there and I went, and we killed 96 ducks that day. And after 96, I say I killed 80. Mm-hmm. Because the first bunch that came in there, they started lighting in the pond I was in.
This is the story you was telling us where you was in the vines?
I was in the...
Tell that story. It's a great story.
I was sitting there. My uncle told me that, you see that willow tree? Go get right there. There's a pond. Well, when I got there, it smelled like a chicken coop, solid with chicken crap. So I got in a tie vine, and I made me a little blind, and right at daylight, 2 mallards came. So I gave them a call. They started to break, and they came to light, and 50 teals came and lit with them. And I was about to shoot, and I could hear this racket coming. I looked behind me. The sky was black, coming with mallards, and they started lighting in that hole. And by the time they were within 5 feet from me, and I wasn't moving, and I looked behind me, and this other man was trying to crawl through this plowed field to get to the hole. And I said, nope, you ain't going to make it. And I shot 3 times. And I went out there and I picked up 28 dead ducks. I didn't go after the broken wings. And then we started shooting after that. And my uncle came, and that's when I told him to tell that man to stop shooting because he couldn't hit nothing.
Mm-hmm. Who was it? Just somebody?
He was a friend of my uncle's, Mr. Stafford Havard. And my uncle was Leon Borrel. So I told him, I said, tell him not to shoot because he can't hit nothing. And we ended up killing 96 that day. And when the game warden came to see what we killed. And when he walked in, he says, "I guess y'all didn't kill nothing." And my uncle says, "Well, no, we didn't, but Johnny killed."
Mm-hmm.
And
when you were shooting ducks like that, were you targeting just mallards, or would you just target the next duck in the decoys?
Back then, most of the ducks that we had was mallards. Mallards. The first time I killed a shoveler.
I was just fixing to ask you.
What?
I was just fixing to ask you about shovelers.
The first time they lit, there was 5 of them. That was me and Bobby LaPrairie. You know, we were in the blind. I said, "God, Bobby, look, some shovelers. Ain't never seen that in my life."
Wow.
So I shot him. When I brought him home, my daddy wanted to kill me because I killed a spoonbill that ain't worth a damn to eat. That's the truth.
Would you target greenheads, or were you just out there shooting whatever mallard come in?
Ducks were ducks.
Ducks were ducks. Okay.
It didn't matter. What people don't realize today, I can remember going out in school. I wasn't the smartest in class because I had my mind outside 90% of the time. At recess, you could walk outside, look up, and you'd see a bunch coming, 150 in a V, maybe 200. When that bunch would get right here, you'd look back, there was another bunch coming behind them. That many ducks all day, passing over Marksville, Louisiana, every day.
Every day.
And that's the gospel truth.
How long did you market hunt?
Well, I'd say from the time I was in high school until I got married. And then I started offshore, and then I didn't have to.
Wait a minute, was it the work or your wife? Did your wife make you an honest man?
Yeah, sort of.
Okay. They do that to folks.
Yeah.
Good ones do.
Right. She didn't want to, she had a little bit more sense than me.
Yeah.
I guess you could say. But
most of them do.
Right. But like I said, I didn't buy no shells. I swapped ducks for shells then.
Uh-huh. What were some of the best hunting conditions you ever ran into? Like we were talking before the show about the freeze of '83.
Right. The freeze of '83, we started off the day after Christmas, and for 10 days, we shot ducks. We killed 1,050 ducks. The first day we killed 150.
Wow.
And
when you say we, how many's we? How many? Just you and
me and my buddy.
Okay, 2 of you.
2 of us, and my little boy and his little boy. But after that, they had to go back to school, and we pounded just me and him.
Mm-hmm. How did you shoot that much? Because even if you're a great shot shooting 100%, to shoot that much, you still got to figure folks can hear, and they know you're shooting a bunch, maybe shooting too many. How did you avoid the game board? How did you stay out of trouble doing that?
Well, back then, if you were in the clique, you could get away with it.
In the clique, like what? Explain that.
And like I said, in '83, in 1972, I'll give you a good example. We killed 286 ducks that day. Out of the 286, I killed 230.
Wow.
That day, my daddy got in the blind with me from 12 o'clock to 1 o'clock. We killed 55 wood ducks. We didn't see a mallard. For 1 hour, we had one bunch after another of 50 to 75 wood ducks lighting the decoys. When we had it lasted 1 hour, and they quit. Daddy says, "I'm going." The game warden came, picked him up with the ducks, and went back to the camp. I stayed until dark, and that's
kept shooting. Would you wait on them to land on the water, or would you shoot them on the wing?
Well, I was shoot one on the water, then when they get up.
I'll be darned. Mallards and wood ducks.
Yep.
The next duck was the next duck.
Like I said, back you could say back from 1962 was 1962 was my. It was a midterm at school. We were taking midterm tests. I flunked every last one of them. We caught a freeze, and I went to the rice fields, where I told you. And that's the most ducks I've seen in my life at that time. We shot 8 times. We picked up 49 ducks.
Mallards?
Mallards.
Unbelievable. What was your gun of choice? And your was that gun you bought, that Winchester?
Yeah, that was the Winchester. At that time, when I on 62, I shot my daddy's Browning 12 gauge automatic. Then I bought me a Winchester 1200, model 1200.
Mm-hmm.
And I should have bought the model 12 was $15 cheaper, but the dealer says, oh, this is a new kind of gun and all this. It looked a little prettier, and I made a mistake.
Didn't hold as many bullets.
That's right. So.
What was your go-to shot shell? Whatever you could get, or?
Well, before I started reloading, I'd shoot an 1.25 ounce, number 6. I'd buy a case that was 20 boxes. I'd buy 10 boxes of number 6, 5 boxes of 7.5, and 5 boxes of number 9.
What do you use them number 9s for, Doug?
On the roofs, yeah.
Oh, talk about hunting on the roof like that.
Well, you had more BBs.
Talking about a wood duck roost at night?
Wood duck roost, mallard roost, it didn't matter. They were closer.
How would you talk about doing that? You just wade into the swamp, wait till dark? Or?
Well, back then, that's when the bean fields opened up, and you'd wait, and you'd see why they were roosting. While the first bunch would start going down, you ran over yonder.
Mm-hmm.
And you'd get there, and they'd pour in on you. And you'd shoot until pitch dark.
Mm-hmm.
And
what would be an average bag on a roost shoot like that? Shooting them 9s.
I'd kill anywhere from 20 to 30, easy.
Did you ever hunt with a dog back there in those days?
No, I was the dog.
You was a dog.
Yeah, I could
you shoot him and
run
fetch
and pick up and fast as hell.
Did anybody hunt with a dog back then?
Not too many. Not.
Was it a function of alligators being around, or just a function of messing up the hunt?
There was no alligators back then.
Really?
The first alligator at Springby that I saw was in 1967, and I hit him in the head with a paddle, knocked him out, put him in the boat, and he had a tag. They had transplanted him there.
Wow.
Because back then in the 50s, the market hunters done cleaned them out.
Really?
Yes. And that's when they brought the beavers in back then. And that ruined a lot of stuff.
Oh, be dang. Had no idea.
Yeah, they didn't have beavers here in 1950. Not until 1967.
And they brought them in.
They brought them in. That was the first beaver dam we saw in Spring Bayou.
Did that help a duck hunt or hurt it?
No, it didn't help, and I think it hurt, really. Well, it didn't make no difference. They just dammed up, but they started cutting the trees, and they got into the canals that drained everything and started damming that up now, you know. That's the trouble with them now.
That's some of the most amazing stuff I've ever heard. You know, so the market hunters wiped out the alligators.
Oh yes, back then they'd sell alligators. You know,
the hides and the meat.
Huh?
The hides and the meat.
Just the hides.
Really?
Most of them didn't eat the alligator.
Really? What's a big thing nowadays? I don't care for them myself. I know Dale likes them. I don't care for them myself. You know, I do like a little jaw meat sometimes fried up, but I can take or leave alligator.
Now, turtle, they went crazy. For a while, people went after the big loggerhead turtles.
They sure
did. Just about wiped them out.
They sure did.
Yeah.
I mean, they sold everything down here.
Oh. If it was good to eat, it was sold.
There's a lot of stuff that folks in this part of the world consider good to eat. The rest of us wouldn't think about it.
That's right. That's right. Growbacks. The only reason they were outlawed a federal offense was it was the Mexican state bird.
Really?
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
yeah. And it was damn good eating.
Have you ever killed them and eaten them?
Oh, yeah.
Huh?
During the summer, we'd hunt growbacks.
How would you cook them?
Smother them with bell peppers, onions, in a black pot.
Make a gravy.
Make a gravy.
That's how you cook everything down here.
Just about.
Tell somebody how to cook that stuff down here. For those listening that don't know how to make a gravy with growback or duck or something, how would you make a gravy?
Well, you start off, you brown your meat. You put your onions, your bell peppers, or whatever, garlic. You brown that good. You put your little flour, you brown that with just a little touch of grease, to keep it from sticking. And then you start putting water and salt and pepper. And you put the lid on the black pot after you put your meat, everything, and you cook it until it's tender.
Mm-hmm. Well, that sounds good. That sounds good. What are some of your favorite memories back then? Just your favorite memories of tell me about some of these great hunts y'all went on back then.
Oh, Lord.
I mean, because some of us can't imagine hunting like that.
1972, like I said, that was my most fantastic hunt. Like I said, I killed 230 ducks. They came and picked me up out the blind at 10 o'clock to go eat something. When I got in the camp, when I was going into the camp, I looked on the side where the silos was. They had about 150 doves sitting on a cement slab. Mm. And I asked the game warden, I said, give me 3 shells, I'll shoot. I can kill 75 doves right there. He says, you shoot that, I'll write you up.
Oh, why?
He says, you go and kill some ducks.
Oh,
that's the truth.
Wasn't no money in doves, was it?
But they better eat. And when I walked in the camp, I was drinking my coffee. The phone rang. And it was Pooney. You remember Pooney? He told me to tell the other game warden that he would be in Corrine's field the next morning to hunt ducks. 2 game wardens.
Mm-hmm. When you sold those ducks at the barber shop or the individuals wherever you sold them, were they plucked and cleaned?
Oh yeah,
already?
You had to pluck them. You had to keep the heart and the gizzard.
They want the heart and the gizzard.
And the gizzard. Oh yeah, just like you buy a chicken. In them.
Well, I mean, going out and shooting a lot of ducks. And I've been to foreign countries where you shoot a bunch still, and that's a lot of work. I mean, that's work.
Oh yeah.
And now you got to clean them all. You whole plucked them.
Dry plucked them.
You must be an expert at plucking.
Not no more. My hands are too old for.
What was you come in with 30 or 40 ducks, let alone 286. How long did it take you to clean them, and how did you clean those ducks that quick?
Well, okay. We dry picked them. In 1983, I kept my father-in-law and 2 of my sons, they were young, in a shed, 8 hours a day picking ducks.
My goodness. All season long.
That's right. When I got married, I had a freezer on the ice box, just the freezer part. Well, after the first week of squirrel season, it was full. So I went and bought the biggest freezer they had, put it in the house. When I filled that up, I filled my mama's freezer, my uncle's freezer, and my other uncle.
Mm-hmm. When you say dry pluck, you mean just sitting there plucking?
Sit there and pluck.
No wax.
No wax.
No machine.
We tried the wax, but we didn't know exactly. Well, back then my grandmother would start picking, and then Daddy and my uncle would help, and then we'd all pitch in and pick.
Mm-hmm. But
then once I got married, I didn't have that no more. So I had my father-in-law, and that's how come I had 4 kids. You could say.
You kept him busy.
Kept them busy.
Well, you know, they say idle hands do devil's work
Oh,
anyway,
yeah,
so
that's right.
you gave them purpose in life.
That's right.
How many ducks reckon they picked during that season?
On an average, I'd say we'd pick from 1,000 to 2,000.
They must have some strong hands.
Oh, yeah.
I guarantee you they did. More than duck hunting, get ducks is the lifestyle we all enjoy. It really is always duck season somewhere. Check out our caps, t-shirts, hoodies, and more at our new GetDucks.com store. That's GetDucks.com/store. Thank you for listening to and for supporting this podcast. And remember, life's short, get ducks.
Now, a mallard's harder to... Now, a wood duck and a teal. I came back one day. My son, we got in... That was in 1989. We caught a freeze. We started all that. I came back from offshore. I left Corpus Christi that night that afternoon. And I got to Alexandria at 1 o'clock that morning. My wife picked me up. I got home, I made a pot of coffee, started drinking, and reloading shells. I left that morning, me and my oldest son went to shoot ducks. We got in the blind. The lake was frozen. I went to get to the lake, and a buddy of mine had my boat. He was going in the lake. They had a spot that the ducks had defrosted about 500-600 yards down the bayou like. They couldn't make it, but I didn't know. I went in the woods. I broke a ring that I had. I broke the hole. The ice, cleared it out. We got in there, and we started shooting ducks, me and my oldest boy. We had killed 54, I believe it was. We came out, I went to check on my boat, and I saw they didn't go but about 50 yards, and they turned around. I said, leave the ducks and the guns here. We're going to go and break the ice so we can come tomorrow morning to get to that place over yonder. And we broke the ice. It was 5 o'clock that afternoon when I came out. And I stopped at my buddy's house to tell him if he wanted to come with us. I said, we got a place. They have the water defrosted. They're sitting there right now, keeping the water warm. If you want to come, we'll butcher them tomorrow. He says, no, I'm going deer hunting. I said, well, go. So me and my boy went in there that morning. We got there. At 10 o'clock, it started defrosting all around. And by that time, we had something like 80-something ducks killed. Came out. We went in the woods. Back to that hole I had broke. We killed 39 in one bunch.
Ooh.
Picked that up. I said, that's enough ducks. And I went to my other hole and broke it for them the next morning to have defrosted. So we came out that day. The next day we went. We killed, me and my second oldest boy, we got in the blind. We started shooting green-winged teals. We had 43 killed for 8 o'clock. And they were still coming. And my little boy says, Daddy, I'm tired of shooting teals. Let's shoot something else. I said, well, I said, we ain't got hardly any. He says, Daddy, you got 43 right there. Oh, I said, well, okay, we'll shoot some mallards now. And sure enough, it was getting about 9 o'clock. The mallards started coming. At 11 o'clock, he says, Daddy, I'm tired. Mm-hmm. I said, well, we hardly have. He says, Daddy, you got 48 ducks, mallards killed, and 43 teals killed. Mm-hmm. Don't you think that's enough? Well, I said, I'll go check on my other boy and see what they got. Well, when I got over yonder, they had 50 ducks killed. So we came back, got to the camp, and my buddy and them came in. They had 84, 85 ducks, mallards killed. That was in the third day of the 89 freeze. And then we started from there on. Well, we averaged about 150 ducks a day for 13 days.
My goodness. mallards and green wings, probably some wood duck.
Wood ducks.
You know, back in the 60s and 70s, I just had this thought. That's when my daddy and granddaddy hunted all. And I never forget one time being, I don't know, waist high, looking at the kitchen sink, and he was cleaning the bird and had a leg band on it.
Yeah.
I didn't know what it was. I said, "What is that?" And he said, "Federal tag." And he just threw it out with the rest of the duck. Did y'all shoot a lot of bands? I mean, surely y'all shot a ton of them things back in the 60s and 70s.
Well, I had a pile of duck bands, but then I don't know why they went. I don't want to say anything.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I went.
You didn't call a man and do all that mess back then, did you? No.
Maybe 5 or 6.
But you took them off the duck
I took them
cabin.
off and I just put them in a drawer.
Yeah.
One day, I was walking the bay at Shinya, the canal around the lake at Shinya, and I killed 9 or 10 wood ducks. Out of the 9 or 10 wood ducks, I had 3 bands.
Wow.
So I saw my buddy. He was the management fella. And I asked him, I said, I killed some wood ducks with some bands. He said, don't send them in. He says, I banded that this year. But I killed 3 in one day.
I'll be dang.
And then I killed one with a $100 reward.
You called him, man, didn't you?
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's big money.
Oh, yeah. When you have 4 kids, oh, yes. But, look, I tell you, then in 89 and then, like I said, between the time I was in high school to the time 1992, up until 2000, an average hunt was 35, 40 mallards. Or, 35 mallards and wood ducks. I'd get in my little holes that I had in the woods, and when they come off the roofs, I was shooting in bunches of wood ducks anywhere from 50 to 150 passing, treetop level. Now you don't see that. Have you seen that late? Nope. Back then, that's how many wood ducks were sleeping in this place I was hunting. It was unbelievable. You'd get in the blind in the morning and listen to the ducks before daylight, hollering. What gets me, all these duck callers, they'll get on that If you ever listen to a wild duck, the most you hear him call, 3 clicks.
They run out of air, yeah.
But this highballing calling, everybody does it. I do it.
Yeah.
And then a lot of people didn't know that back then in the trees, you'd be creeping and you'd hear. You heard that before? That's late in the season. That's how they communicated. They'd pop their wings to find out where they were.
Really?
When you'd creep them in the trees, in the Borrel, what we call button willows, they were eating the bennies. There was a plant. And you'd hear. And when you start creeping. Well, when you'd see them, you'd see the drakes. You never saw the females because it was all brown. Mm-hmm. So you'd get 2 males in a shot, and then when they disappeared, you'd pull the trigger because there was 2 or 3 hens in front of them. So you'd kill the whole shebang. And you kept the wind to your back blowing to them.
Now, when they had
because when they got up, they had to come to you. And you'd sit there and... Mm-hmm. I've seen myself shoot 19 times, bum, 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 dropping them when they get out them trees. Mm-hmm. He saw me do that before.
Mm-hmm. Wow. I'm just thinking about those days. You go to foreign countries, you see that kind of stuff now, but you don't really see that here anymore. No. When did you start seeing a decline in mallards coming this far south?
I started really seeing it in 2000. But before that, we never had, when they just had the Callahoola Game Management Area, the rest area there.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when they bought Spring Bayou Game Preserve, they made a rest area. And while they had the sign, they say ducks can't read. Well, I got news for you. When they see that sign, they'd light right on the other side of the sign.
Mm-hmm.
And they piled into that rest area. And nobody was shooting on the outside because they were all in there. So finally the game wardens took it out and opened up the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
But then they had, in 1994, 95, when they bought Little California, Lockefield, Cat Island, and St. Catherine in Mississippi. The flyway, that's the tightest flyway of the Mississippi and the Central Flyway, is right here in Avoyelles Parish.
Mm-hmm.
And they got 5 reserves. And that's where they stay at now.
They shut it down.
And they got to the point where I started noticing that, I'd say roughly about, let's see, 2011, about 2010, 2008, they started coming in right at a half hour after shooting time. Start piling into these fields around here. And then when you drive up in the morning, you hear them get up and go back to the reserve.
Mm-hmm.
And that got us.
You know, we go down to Mexico. We go down to some of these foreign countries.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of ducks.
Right.
But I'll give you an example. We went down to Mexico back late January, and we stayed at this beautiful resort, and we get up in the morning. We get there 30 minutes after shooting time. We're wearing sometimes shorts, sometimes light pants, Crocs, but you don't need no. But we're shooting freshwater. These birds are coming in. It's like there's 8 of us or there's 12 of us, and everybody shoots 20 ducks. And by 9 o'clock, we're sitting on the bank eating burritos.
Yeah.
And clients are like, man, I just can't believe there's so many ducks. Like, well, it's a lot of ducks, a lot of teal, but there's zero hunting pressure.
Right.
There is zero
hunting pressure. That's right.
We go out. That particular spot gets shot once or twice every 10 days for about an hour.
Right.
And so you go shoot 200 ducks with a crowd of you.
That's right.
But when we're sitting there eating dinner or breakfast, where you want to call them burritos there at 9:30 in the morning, you sit there and watch that duck hole, and it's just ducks are fogging. And when you get done, it's as black as it was when you got there with ducks.
Right.
So I'm sitting there thinking back in the 50s, 60s, 70s, there was a lot of ducks coming down here.
Yeah.
But, man, y'all were, I mean, talk about a man that goes out and shoots 30, 40 ducks a hunt. His son goes out and shoots 50. Him and his other son shoot 90 every day that they can.
That's right.
And it wasn't just y'all. It was your neighbors. It was your community. Right. But when I think back to then, now I think back to today, 2020, in one of 20-something states I hunted this year, it's just the enormous hunting pressure, it seems. It seems like so much more hunting pressure today than back then, but it don't make sense, you know.
Okay, now back when I started hunting Chignon, that was me and my buddy, the Johnsons, the Couvions, and then they had one you had Grand Lake that was hunting. Smith Bay, they had the Rochals and a couple of others right there. Now, we hunted, well, like in my case, I'd hunt 7 days a week. Now, I take my vacation 7 days every other. I was working 7 and 7. In other words, I was going 7 days, come back for 7 days. But then I take my vacation the last 3 weeks of the duck season. You understand? And I'd hunt it for 21 days. Back then, you didn't have the pressure that you're thinking of. You had your regular, your diehard hunters that like us.
Yeah.
That hunted every day. But on the weekends, that's when the the weekend warriors would come, and then it wasn't as much killing then on the weekends, but just Monday to Friday, you did what you wanted.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And then on the weekends, you had a few more hunters that would sort of, but then it would help us out when they'd get in the bean fields, they'd come into the trees faster.
Mm-hmm. And a lot of when you think about some of the numbers y'all were shooting then, it was a lot over limit. But relative to today, where the limit on mallard is 4, back then it was 4. But we start talking about teal and wood ducks and pintails and gadwalls. Those were 10-point ducks. A lot of that period of time you're talking about. The limit was 10 anyway.
Right.
Which is kind of just hard to get your mind wrapped around when you can only shoot so many on the good days today.
Right.
On the best of days, and I've heard biologists say that bag limit doesn't kill ducks. Days kill ducks. In other words, and when you think about hunting pressure, like by you just said, you're working offshore, you're doing this and that, but you might have been hunting with vacation 20 days a year. Man, most folks today they're skipping their child's recital, they're skipping vacations. Mm-hmm. I mean, boom, they're hunting more than that, and then they're traveling all over the flyway, and which I'm all about. But I'm just saying, it just seems like a lot of hunting pressure. Dale just handed me a note, and this is a very good point too. Not only was versus today in the year 2020 with all the modern devices we've got versus then, it sounded to me like hearing your stories, a lot of what y'all did, you boated in some of them areas, but you walked in a lot of them areas.
Right.
And that when I think back to the 50s, 60s, 70s versus now, there were a lot of areas, even down here where everybody's hunting them like they hurt the mamas, y'all couldn't get to or didn't get to.
That's right. Like I said,
it was harder to get to them then.
That's right. Until they started clearing out all these bean fields. When they cleared out around Spring Bayou, I can remember going to the dam, and I looked out there towards the Avoyelles and said, "God damn, I know people didn't pass there, but they did." You know what I mean? That's when you realize how much timber they had in the flyway and how much
flooded timber.
Just the other day, I flew back from Kansas to New Roads, and when I got to, you could say, we passed over from Monroe to New Roads. Along the Mississippi River, I didn't realize how much flooded country we had until we got right here. And this year we didn't have a outstanding duck season, because most of them were in the reserves. But
the ones that made it down, maybe, because a lot of ducks didn't make it down till February.
Well, now when we caught that big ice that we just got through, I had mallards and pintails in my pond behind my house. Now, but we never had in the last since. Oh hell! I'd say we caught an ice about 4 years ago.
17.
Yeah. Now we killed some ducks then, but before that, we haven't had no cold weather.
Well. Besides, you done brought up a bunch of good points. It was harder to access places back in these days. But there was a lot more places ducks could go to that were just kind of overlooked too. I mean, a lot of habitat. So now you got these federal reserves, but back then you had just because of access, you just had places ducks could go do ducky things.
When I was in high school, I could hunt any place in Louisiana and not get a posted sign. Am I wrong? I hunted from Monroe down to Baton Rouge.
Mm-hmm.
And nothing. I'm going hunting here. You went.
Nobody cared.
Nobody cared then.
Yeah.
Now it's a big money deal. Thank God they made them reserves. For Louisiana's lucky. I went to Amarillo. They don't have a federal reserve nowhere around. So you can, wherever you find water, you can butcher.
Mm-hmm.
You go to Kansas, the same thing. Oklahoma. Same. If you have a pond, you're going to butcher. Because they got to come drink. That's the main thing. People say, oh, it's water they need. You got to drink every day, huh?
That's right.
So, and once you fill up that crawl, you got to put something in it.
Well, that's what a lot of folks say that keep up with us going down to Mexico. They say, well, you must be baiting. I'm like, man, these Mexicans ain't baiting nothing. They ain't going to spend that money on bait. Them ducks, it's a Sonora desert. It's a desert. They're coming in to drink fresh water.
That's right.
The hotter it gets, and the reason we can get there so late after daylight is because the hotter it gets, the more the thirstier they get.
That's right.
Yeah.
And people don't realize that, you know.
Do you feel like back in the 50s, 60s, 70s, do you feel like there was more cold weather back then than there is now?
I think so, because I can remember, I was born in 48. 51, they had a big freeze. In 50, they had 2 or 3 good freezes. 62, I think 64, 72, that was a big freeze when we killed all them ducks. 75 we called the big flood. No, 74 we called the big flood. Yeah, we had more cold weather because I can remember for squirrel season sometimes you had to wear a coat. And now you can go in short sleeve shirts.
Yeah. This last season was terrible in the Deep South. It was warm for so long.
Yeah. Oh, like I told my grandson.
Until that big front hit.
If that big front could have hit in December 1st.
Yeah.
I'd like to see how many ducks would it.
My son is 23 years old, my oldest son. And we were going up to Arkansas to band ducks. University of Arkansas, Monticello took us out to duck band one day, and that front was about 2 days away, and it was still cold.
Yeah,
and you could see those ducks piling in some of those areas we were hitting, and I said, because he's 23 years old, and he ain't seen that.
Right.
And he ain't seen what would have happened had he gone out when that freeze was sitting here in the Deep South. And I can remember it getting so cold when I was his age. And I said, I was your age in college when I can remember. Here comes that blue ball norther blowing down. First thing I have to do, I was driving a Toyota 4-cylinder. I'd have to go cut cardboard, put between my grill and my radiator, so I get some hot air blowing out.
Right.
He can't get his mind wrapped around that.
I know.
But when those fronts hit, by God, everybody had duck that had open water.
That's right. And now I've been reading the duck reports. When I was growing up, Daddy and them would say, boy, the duck's in Arkansas. The duck's in Arkansas. Wait for a front. When a front would come, now this is 2 days before the front, you'd butcher. When the front would hit, it wasn't a good day. The minute that south wind would start blowing, they came from the Gulf, heading north again.
Yeah.
You butchered for 2 or 3 more days.
Mm-hmm.
You understand?
Oh, yeah.
And nowadays, you don't have that. And I've been reading the reports in Arkansas. Even Arkansas, or the old hunters, are complaining.
Oh, yeah.
There's no more ducks there. But yet, you go to Amarillo, Texas. I'd like to show them guides how to shoot ducks instead of saying, take them.
Yeah. Sorry to do it to you folks, but thank you for listening to this episode of Duck Season Somewhere. We will be back next Monday with part 2 of our interview with Mr. Johnny Borrel, former Louisiana market hunter of Avoyelles Parish, Louisiana. Stay tuned. It's a good one. See you next time.